2. The Holden Racing team have been fined $1,000. Watch to the front of the car. Car controller Jeff Gregg cleans some grass from the front spoiler. Now, under the pit lane rules for safety, the car controller is not allowed to do that. His role is to guide the car in and make sure it gets out cleanly and safely. Now, if this was detected during the race, Scaife should have received a stop-go. If it was detected after the race, the total time added to his race time. Neither of those has happened, and that's incensed his fellow competitors in pit lane. Greg Rust is with team manager Jeff Gregg.
Well, there's been some conjecture in between race 2 and race 3, Jeff Gregg, and a fine coming to the way of the Holden Racing team. What's happened there?
Yeah, what happened was, Rusty, that the car went off into the grass, and you know, by the it's complex because at long distance races a car controller can clean the radiator, and at the short ones he can't. He can't. You're not allowed to touch the car. So basically, what happened, Rusty, is the cars come in. He said, I've been off in the grass, it was full, and I didn't think. I was a car controller, and I got fined, which, look, it was against the rules, but, it was... I had no choice. The car would have overheated and he would have been back in the pit again. So, we just had to do it.
Just quickly, were you or was Mark or the team fined? Who was actually fined?
No, it was a team or basically the car controller. So I'm short $1,000.
Well, that's even worse for you because you'll be taken out of your pay packet for the beers tonight too. So you're down a couple.
Exactly. We might be having the empties. That's good. Thanks.
I tell you what, that's a very cheap price to pay, Neil, for winning a race, isn't it? Well, keeping your race win.
Yeah, or you're keeping your position and your points. Certainly got plenty of people up and down pit lane dancing at the moment.
I can remember at Adelaide when HRT's wheel went into the sort of pit road in and out, and they only got fined there, didn't they?
Well, following on from that, let's hear a reaction from another team manager, Ford's Alan Heafy.
Yes, Alan, what's your take on the penalty dished out to the Holden Racing team?
Well, I don't think it's correct, really. If the infringement was done during the race period, they would have got a stop-go penalty for it. And my understanding is that if it was found out after the race had completed, then there should have been that stop-go penalty time added to the race time of that car that was in that infringement. So I don't think it's correct. I mean, it's an easy $1,000 to keep a race win. I mean, I'm not in agreement with it at all.
Jeff was saying that it was only a matter of confusion on his behalf. Some races you're allowed to do it, some you aren't. Is confusion enough of an excuse?
Well, I mean, it's pretty specific in the regulations. You get what you can and can't do, and if they don't read them correctly, that's their problem. But I think there's only 2 races in the whole series that allows you to clean the grill out. It's very much a safety issue, and I mean, again, there's another occasion when sometimes they get away with things I think that possibly they shouldn't. But that's my opinion.
Let's hope you can do the business in the race.
We'll do our best. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan.
Nothing like a bit of controversy to spice up the last race of the year, is there? We get ready for this third and final race, and we have had it confirmed that it is a safety car start. There's quite a bit of water laying around this 3.1 kilometre Sandown circuit. This will be a tough one.
And just to define that, you can see the amount of standing water on the road. The race director and stewards have deemed that to start the cars from a standing start side by side where there is a lot of water, in particular to the inside of turn 1, is extremely dangerous. So the cars will file on behind the Munro safety car, and at an appropriate point the lights will switch off and it will peel into the pit lane in the same way that it does during the race.
Well, let's take a look at the Shell Helix starting grid, and this is a reflection of the results of the second race. Qualifying positions, race 2 results there on your graphic as well. But a marvellous win and the first ever 1-2 for the Kmart Commodore team. Lowndes will start third, Scaife, Ambrose, Radicic. Barguana's having a very consistent weekend, and Stephen Richards from 8th.
Reminder, the column, the extreme right-hand column of boxes there is where they started race 2, so you get an idea of how they're going throughout the day. Jason Richards, great effort to get into the top 10. Stephen Ellery there too. Jason Bryden, Brad Jones, John Faulkner and David Bernard, Simon Wills and Paul Wheel. And Paul Wheel starting from 16th can confirm that he just simply aquaplaned in race 2. That's why he spun in front of Russell Ingall and collected the Armco. Ben Seaton, Cameron McConville, Dougal McDougall, Paul Morris, Stephen Johnson. That was a blown engine, so they've done an engine change in between races 2 and 3. Anthony Tratt, Larry Perkins and Paul Romano starts off the back. Well, again, repeating, this will be a safety car start. Greg?
Well, not everybody's happy about it being a safety car start either, Gary.
No, Greg, I'm not, to be quite honest. I mean, certain decisions are made that we have no input into, and I suppose if that's the rules, you have to abide by them. But, I mean, these guys are professionals. They should know what they're doing. And, I mean, it's been raining all day, and most of these drivers have raced in the wet before. And to be quite frank, these cars were going faster at the first corner from a rolling start than they will from a standing start.
There you have it. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
We're really whipping up a frenzy.
I tell you what, there was a nasty accident in the Formula 4 race. Luckily enough, nobody was badly hurt.
And also in the sports sedan race.
Right in the middle of just after the start and finish line.
Maybe the point that Gary has not considered there is the reason the cars are going to go around is to disperse some of the water.
Disperse some of the water, yeah.
And,
I think you're right.
He's right. They're professionals and they know what they're doing. But I don't know whether he's spoken to any other drivers in the field, but there are not too many people out there that are impressed with the idea of a cold tyre, standing start, driving through puddles to the first corner. It's common sense.
If you look here, just about there where Todd Kelly is a hell of a lot of standing water, and just after that is where Ambrose, just here. So this is where the Formula 4 guys went off. So as it stands here now, what says this is the first lap of the race, in other words?
Well, that's an interesting question, but you need to see the safety car to ultimately determine when the lights go out before they go racing. I'd need to actually be in contact with the stewards to find out whether, in fact, they have waved the green flag or whether there's been a light system to determine that the actual race has been started. But, yeah, I understand that, in fact, they have started to now lap score.
Yeah.
So there's different ways that you could define it. So there's been a definition in race control that the race has been started, the safety car will peel off and then they'll go racing. And what they'll be looking for is information from corner workers to determine how much water has been dispersed as the cars move around. The other important aspect of this is that everybody's getting a chance to warm their tyres and brakes in order to be able to effectively go racing cleanly.
But it does, as you rightly say, it does really disperse a lot of the standing water, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and the two previous races have been very nasty accidents, so I think there's certainly grounds for it. I wouldn't say that it's red-hot controversial that they start behind a safety car. I think it actually makes sense.
I'm sure you're right that Gary Rogers didn't... what Gary was thinking was that they didn't want the guys to start go rushing into the first corner on cold tyres, and not so much thinking about dispersing the water, I suppose.
Mark Scaife, centre of the controversy after race 2, and a man who will finish this race and celebrate tonight his back-to-back efforts in the Shell Championship Series. It's been a marvellous season for him, 2001. And will be trying as hard as he possibly can to finish on a high. He's got a couple of very fast cars in front, the Kmart Commodores and Craig Lowndes. The Ford race analysis. Well, we're already underway. 48 laps. We're eating into that 150 kilometres. And the pit window is the same as the previous 2 rates for that compulsory pit stop. Laps 2 to 35, that window is.
They will do one more lap behind the safety car before it leaves the front of the field, pulls into the pit lane area, and we go racing. Greg?
Just to confirm on that, because they've done one lap now underneath the safety car. The first one was a warm-up lap. They've just completed lap 1. So this could catch a few people out here in terms of when that pit window opens, the technicality factor.
Yeah, you're right about that. You need to be onto it. In fact, the teams have got a race control channel, so the team managers or car controllers will hear the status of the race over the radio, and they'll know. They hopefully will know what the situation is.
So Jeffrey.
No problem, Jeff.
Plenty of pressure on the team managers to get strategy right. This is the final race of the year. Everyone wants to finish in the best possible fashion. Lights are out on the safety car, so we are ready to go green. Well, I guess we already are green, sort of, because we have started ticking over those laps, but racing for real.
The other point that needs to be made is that it certainly doesn't indemnify everybody from having an accident. There's still enormous potential for chaos in these conditions at the best of times. And as they cross the start-finish line at the end of this lap, the pit window will be open, although I don't know that there's anybody going to be diving in the early stages until this sorts itself out.
Just about got some heat in their tyres now. They will come in now and change.
Get a little bit of benefit out of heat soak from the brakes, and everybody will have been cycling the brake pedal pretty aggressively.
So ready to go racing. The safety car will leave the circuit. Lights are out, and we are getting ready to go now. Here we go. Todd Kelly brings them onto the main straight. After 2 laps, pit window is officially open, and we begin the final race of the 2001 season. Look at Scaife on the inside of Lowndes, side by side. The number 1 HRT machine is there. That's a successful move.
Another Kmart 1-2 as they come through Holden Corner under full green, full speed racing conditions in this very slippery track. It's a Kmart 1-2 as they finished race 2. Look at Scaife splashing through the puddles right up against the curbs there. Craig Lowndes right in his mirrors, and then there's the Pertec Ford.
Bargwanna was very quick too to nip up the inside of Paul Radicic, so he's moved up 1 position already.
You find that many of the turns, Lowndes has gone up the inside of Scaife going up the back straight, and I think actually made a move on him. Got better traction coming off turn 4 as they head to the end of the back straight. Holds position, Scaife with the lights on, takes it back again under brakes and reclaims 3rd spot.
Brave stuff up there, top speed. You're looking at around 250 kilometres an hour, very fast in these treacherous conditions. Meanwhile, the 2 Kmart Commodores are starting to just edge away a little.
Plenty of pressure here from Craig Lowndes. Look at the rain just pouring down. It's really opened up. 2 Kmart Commodores. Lowndes has looked down the inside, well positioned. Scaife gives him room, or does he?
No, he's got better position for the final turn. It's an old trick at Sandown, and he's used it before. And they crisscross again. So again, Lowndes up the inside. Is Scaife peeling off? No, he's running with him. So tremendous battle for 3rd and 4th between old teammates Lowndes and Scaife. Now Mark goes to the inside for another crisscross, and the Ford and Holden fans go nuts in the stand.
And Kelly has pitted. Kelly has pitted. The race leader is the first to come in, as was the case in race 2, and so too is Jason Bright. So Bright has beaten him out of the pits. So it was a successful strategy in the opening race. Scaife thought about coming up the inside of Craig Lowndes.
I think
Ambrose went in as well.
I was going to say Bryce just coming in.
He's coming in, actually. So he's right at the end, isn't he?
Yep, Kelly's pulled the right rein here. It worked for him in race 2. He's probably figured that's the way to go in race 3.
Knowing that they were going into a wet race that was likely to...
Hang on. Follow him out.
That's the car controller there, just getting him to hang on and sit in behind the other car. You can't go out side by side. Knowing that they were going into a wet race that was likely to continue to be wet throughout the 1 hour, several people have certainly made changes to their cars now in this race, Mark, in order to try and suit the conditions better. It's not something they often do, but they are actually setting the cars for the wet in some cases.
Brighty, Jason Bright's car, he said, was terrible because he apparently runs his car really a lot harder than the other 3 HRT cars, so he's softened his thing up quite a lot. Also, Glenn Seaton, there was another one, he said his car was undrivable.
Yeah.
So a number of drivers took that opportunity to pit early.
And they may relax the spring rate in the car, perhaps make shock absorber setting changes, may change the anti-roll bars on the car.
I tell you what was interesting, I was talking to Brad Jones when he came in for a pit stop in the first race. He said the car was terrible. When they took the rears off, they adjusted the dampers. They said it was worth wasting an extra 5 or 6 seconds because he went out and made that 6 or 7 seconds up in a couple of laps.
Gap closing slightly between Murphy and Lowndes, who's just eased fractionally away from Mark Scaife. Bargwanna 4th. Bradley Jones, the man you were talking about, then Barry is up to 5th.
Keep in mind the battle for 2nd and 3rd in the championship here as well. Greg Murphy at this stage, the Kmart racing team are saying stay out, don't come in. Jason Bright, by comparison, has been in one of the first to do his stop.
If you're buried in the pack at the moment, look how dirty that road is out there. That's why some people are coming in. You lose so much time when you're lost in the fog. In the car, it's like sitting in behind a semi-trailer at 100 k's on a wet road and switching the wipers off. It's a brownout. It's not all nice like it looks from the outside here.
Bargwanna's on the move. He's starting to make a little ground on Scaife at the moment. Top 4. Greg Murphy, Craig Lowndes, Mark Scaife, Jason Bargwanna, Brad Jones sitting in the top 5 at the moment, yet to pit.
Bargs has been looking forward to the rain the whole weekend. When I saw him yesterday, he said, I hope it absolutely buckets down. Oh, listen to that.
And he's in. He's coming in.
So too Murphy. Murphy peels off. So the top 2 on the road, they are in. Bargwanna, Scaife is in as well. Bargwanna continues.
So the leaders all taking their cues from each other. It puts Bargwanna to the top of the order. Murph's job in, done quickly and efficiently. Scaife, on the other hand, is at the other end of pit lane.
Remember that lightning pit stop in the 8-second bracket. Can they repeat that?
You reckon Jeff will bend down and do anything this time? I don't think so.
It's a good stop so far. 6 seconds gone. Greg Murphy trundles past us. Will Craig Lowndes get out ahead of Mark Scaife? The controller stops him. We've got a problem on the front right here. This is a long stop for Mark Scaife.
The man you got to watch, though, is Todd Kelly. He's done it again. He was the first in the queue to pit, see where he is on track, and Marks gave rejoins.
That was costly.
Yeah, really. Very lucky as well, actually, that the wheel was just on the hub, wasn't it, when they dropped it down?
Get back in your river, mate. Obviously, that was a cocker.
It sure was. But that's the kind of pressure that the teams are under, and it was only in the previous...
Skate's run off. He's run wide. Turn 1.
Cold tyres, very wet track.
And frustration.
A bit more grass in the front.
You're right, mate. Have a breath.
I was going to say, this is the pressure that the crews are under. It was only a race ago we were talking about what an amazing job that they'd done of doing an efficient stop, and everybody up and down the pit lane, not just drivers but crews as well, are under pressure. They've got to perform, and every now and again things go wrong. That's the beauty of the pressure in the pit stops, as Bright goes by.
I'm just wondering if Todd Kelly's had a moment out there, because Greg Murphy came in later, and Murphy is now remaining ahead of him on the road.
He's got to
waiting for it to trip up?
Yeah, he's got to allow for that timing monitor to trip up, see their true positions on the circuit. It's always a bit confusing when the pit stops are happening.
The rain's actually getting a little heavier since the commencement of the race, but just to touch on what Neil was saying before, it really is interesting just to watch the way the teams and team managers are keeping an eye on what everyone else is up to. Originally, the plan at Kmart Racing was to keep the early leader Murphy out for much longer, but I think there's a bit of reaction to what other teams are up to, and they changed their plan.
Certainly, in order to stay in step with the race and not disadvantage yourself in some way, shape or form, there is a theory that suggests it's worthwhile staying in tune with what the leader or leaders are up to. Look at the pressure on here. If it gets an awful lot wetter, I mean, we're not in that zone at the moment, but if it continues to get heavy wet, I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't run the full distance.
Well, we can confirm that this is effectively the battle for the leaders. Lowndes goes up the inside. Contact. Bit of contact between the former teammates. It looks like another hit between them. But these guys are running 10th and 11th, but they're effectively the race leaders. They're the first cars that have made their compulsory stops, and they're storming through the field. So Craig Lowndes now gets in front of Greg Murphy. Brilliant stops from both of these pit crews to get them in such a strong track position.
I was going to say, I reckon if the rain gets much worse, Neil, we're going to really have to watch out on the front straight with aquaplaning, because there's getting a hell of a lot of surface water around now.
Yeah, sorry, Barry, there was an awful lot of tippy-toeing from Craig at the end of the back straight that time. When you get out of those, what look like wheel tracks, and into the slippery area, look at this move at turn 4. Lowndes up the inside under power, second gear.
Whoa! One hit.
Murph turns in, but Craig was well and truly underneath him, and the two of them continue to bump and grind all the way, and Murph will be frustrated.
Oh, dear me.
Now, there's a lot of garbage in the front of that thing, so that's going to be an issue. He's gone off at turn 9.
And he's still in front of Murphy.
Is he?
Yes, Murphy is just behind.
That's going to affect the water temperature of that car.
That was the same as Mark did earlier on.
Look at the amount of grass.
Severe.
No doubt the officials will ping Lowndes that.
Well, why?
For cutting corners or whatever.
Well, they didn't with Mark.
Well, they didn't with Mark.
Yeah. Oh, we did it in HRT, though.
So, Bargwanna leads on the road. Here's the replay, the Shell Helix replay. Watch Craig Lowndes.
Oh.
Tried to pull it up, couldn't quite, and continued straight on.
You can't...
So straight across that grass area, the race leader, and there's Murphy in the background. He's been able to rejoin the circuit.
You don't get penalties for stuff like that. You get penalties if you do something that's blatantly fragrant. You know.
What's the chance? There's little or no chance of getting on the brakes, stamping on the brakes.
Oh, Murphy!
Whoa, getting some of that out.
So plenty of action here at the V8 Ultimate. This is the third and final race. It is the last race of the year. We're going to wait and see here if Craig Lowndes will come in. Will he try and come in for a quick...
Well, they'll be waiting to see what the water temperature does before they make any bizarre strategy that would take him out of the lead of the race.
Keep your eyes on Marcus Ambrose too, because he's really closing in on these two.
No, he's not.
And continuing on.
Look at the Pertec Ford there, right behind Murphy.
Making plenty of ground. We'll keep our eyes on it. This is really the battle for the top, but this is the road positions. Bargwanna, Richards, McConville, Mazira and Longhurst. Then we get into this battle now of Lowndes, Murphy and Ambrose. The action continues on the other side of this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sandown, the V8 Ultimate. The action continues. Glenn Seaton very fortunate not to roll the Ford Tickford AU as it comes to rest in the turn 1 sand trap. Quite a treacherous turn, that one. The view from overhead. And he's certainly not the first, and certainly won't be the last to have done that in turn 1.
Funny, that's just what we were talking about before. But it's so bad now, isn't it?
Now, just a little bit earlier, Craig Lowndes took the opportunity to come in and let the crew try and clear that grass and all that garbage out of the radiator. Even had the hose in there trying to wash it away.
And just to clarify, that's not the compulsory stop that these people are doing for tyres. That's a stop to actually clean the rad.
So he's allowed to come in under safety car just to do other stops apart from compulsory tyre stops.
Under safety car conditions, you're not allowed to take your compulsory stop.
Now, another one of the victims like Glenn Seaton, but not in the same style, is Paul Radisich. He's with Greg.
Well, Paul, you're out of this one. What a hard way to end the season. What's happened? Is it a similar problem to Stevens' misfire?
It's the way it's gone from us, really. It just sums up the year. Very disappointing, and at the moment it's just running on 6 cylinders, and you know, and even in weak conditions, it just hasn't got enough power to keep up with the other guys. So it looks like it's more terminal than rather just putting on a couple of leads. So disappointing, but we'll come back next year.
What's it like driving out in these conditions at the moment?
It's impossible.